and management company of Sugar City FM 90.3. Nor are such statements necessarily supported or endorsed by the owners, managers, or advertisers of the station. While we encourage all to share their opinions, we do not support any comments that may slander, discriminate, or otherwise offend anyone, and we insist that you refrain from any such statements.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is the cancer and no runner come out for war?
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmsankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. Citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is the cancer and no runner come out for war?
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmsankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Good evening. Welcome to Fear No Favor. We want to look at a few topics this evening. We want to really be harsh in terms of reality. We have a workshop. And I read a message here in the WhatsApp from the director of the National Drug Council. She said the PM came to pay us a visit today. The National Drug Council, in collaboration with the OAS, making sure our frontline workers are equipped to treat adolescents with substance use disorder. That is interesting for me. That is the specific institution or department that I work with within the Ministry of National Security, the National Drug Council. They have some training going on right now for frontline workers, combination of teachers, nurses, people from all over, customs, police. They're being trained and make sure that they're equipped. I have to ask a question, though. Why do we, as black people, deal with other black people like that? We get involved in the drug trade. Whatever good it has for whoever. But it's not like you're selling these harsh substances to white people per se. Your own black people. You are setting up yourself to have a constant market. So whatever you have to do to get these people as permanent or close to permanent as possible. Patrons in your drug trade. And what make it worse is that young people, very young age, under 25, very much a part of this effort. We know what drugs can do to the minds of our young people. But yet, for many years, we have persons who are deeply involved in it. Persons who might have gotten terribly rich from pursuing those avenues. But why would you want to impact your own black brother in such a negative way? And I'm talking about whether black in America, blacks in the Caribbean, black in the OECS, black in the Windward, black in the Leewards. Why do we have as part of our target customers or consumers our very own black people? Lord, black people already are at a disadvantage throughout the entire world. And we want to make things even more harsh for our own black people. We now looking forward to becoming a republic. We're trying to get away from that white influence, the white impact that would have messed with us in an adverse way. Why are we doing all this fight to do that? But at the same time, within our own boundary, we're still targeting the black people to mess up their minds with drugs, harsh drugs. When you hear that there was a haul, there was a bus of this amount of cocaine, I mean, who are we going to feed this cocaine to? Our own black people. We know what cocaine can do to a person's brain. And every time you hear about this bus and intervention and whatever else, interception, whatever else, and you look back and you extrapolate, this thing was destined for your own black people. So why do we want to do that? It is a very unfortunate situation. Very, very, very unfortunate. And nobody wants to look into that. The brains of the black man is being damaged by his own black people. You can't get the cocaine, so you give them spanger to use. You put them out in society looking like zombie. All you know is that whatever little change you get, they beg somebody $10 to buy a half a cheese and a soft drink or a soda. They ain't going to buy that. They're coming to look for you to patronize your business. How do you feel? What your conscience would tell you? To see these people in these states coming to look for you, to purchase their drugs, is like the laser focus and exactly where to go, who to go to. You own black people, you're doing that too. And then we got God to complain about other people who taking advantage of us when we right at the nucleus doing the same thing. How can you sell your own black brother drugs that would interfere with their mental system, mental faculty? How could you do that? And then we have some older siblings who would have gone through whatever they went through, doing whatever they have to do in an illegal way. Now they have younger siblings, and instead of trying to use their bad experiences to talk to the younger siblings, they make a concerted effort to get them a part of it. So they pull them in. So imagine you have to go find money to bail them, money to pay lawyer. And if they get a conviction, money for appeal court. You know, and your money just going up, going up, going up. And sometimes some very poor persons, because despite the fact that they were so embedded in this drug or illegal trade, they don't even have the cushion. So somebody would have to take it upon themselves to make a sacrifice to use very scarce money to have them aided from a legal perspective. How do we feel having younger siblings pulled into it, absorbed fully, knowing the scarcity of money, sitting down in jail cell, having to beg a phone call, bring this to me, bring that for me. Not even, okay, black is black. But your family, you encouraging to do that? You had a disastrous academic life. Basically came out with nothing. Or even that you came out with one or two stuff. You're still struggling because your mindset is not there and trying to capitalize on whatever you would have gotten from school. So you bully your younger siblings into following in your footsteps, not caring one hell about what happens to them. And you call that their love? Man, we have far to go, man. Far, far, far to go. If we can't get love within our own family and look after our younger siblings, you might not have what it takes to guide them from an academic perspective. But you should be helping them. You should fund them to get better, advanced in their academic quest. But instead you pull them away. Your own experience. Spabo got a song say that you got to learn from the mistakes that others made. Yes, you're going to make some of your own when you combine that experience with the witnessing of other person's mistakes. You're supposed to be a better person to better lead your younger siblings. You want them to be in a hurry because somehow we have this misconception that once they get involved, they don't have to go through any subjects and that would take a long time when they could just push some drugs and make money quick. But you're not telling them the full story. When you're in a haste to make money, from the illegal perspective of getting involved in drugs, illegal substances, sometimes your life gets shortened. Sometimes your life gets shortened. So what do you use to make tons of monies in a short space of time? And the lifespan that you're supposed to go through to enjoy that money is also cut short. Cannot make sense to me. That seemed to be rather idiosyncratic. Make money quick, die quick. So what happened to life? What happened to the sacrifice that your mothers made? The sweat and tears that your father had to produce to put food on the table. No recollection of that. Total disregard, just stoic, you indifferent. You have no heart at all. Maybe the world should have been made in such a way that men could experience pregnancy. And maybe the world would have been 1,000,000% better off if those things could have been alternated. Because then we would have a better appreciation of the pains and sacrifices that females got to go through in order to bring a child into this world. You go into labor, it's a 50-50 chance. You could come out alive, or you could not come back out alive. Why are we behaving like this? Total disregard for the whole journey that a woman had to take in order to bring forth a child. And that is why I believe that these people who get involved in these drugs, it is a spectrum of adverse effects. They have those that are slightly affected and those that are affected in a very big way. But the reality is that all of them are heading to be impacted in a very negative way. The only difference between those who are slightly impacted and those on the next extreme is the rate at which they would go from the lower extreme to the higher extreme. They're all on the way in transitioning. But some of us don't want to speak the truth. We don't want to let them know the facts, the reality. Somebody might say, well, you're using this thing for 20 years, 30 years, doing whatever. Yeah, that is true. But your life would have been compromised. Your life would have been compromised. It is so unfortunate that you cannot live two lives. One, drug-free. The other one, drug-filled. So then you can do your comparative analysis as you move on. If that could have been done, then we would have realized the differential between a life that was absolutely drug-free and one that involved the use of drugs to a varying degree. Just one transition from the lowest point to the highest point. But the thing is, the rate determining steps. How long would it take you to transition from being slightly impacted to being terribly impacted? Then we spoke about we like to follow science when it's convenient for us. The science said that it is good for this and good for that and good for whatever. But you're not using it in the form that the science asks that you use it in. You use it in a form that is contradictory to what the research would have done. What form do you use it in? I mean, don't talk about the adding of this substance and the adding of that substance. You're not doing it how the science says that you must do it. Well, okay, you believe in the science and you keep pushing it in person's face because you're an advocate of it. You're an advocate of it. But you're not telling them that the science said that the brain is not truly developed until the age of 25. And then they come back later, like early this year or late last year, to tell us that they would have added on another 5 years, not fully developed until your age 30. And all of us have our own unique challenges from a physiological perspective. So when they say 25 or 30, that is based on average. Some people might be outliers. Some people brain might develop as at an earlier age. Some people brain might be developed at a later age, maybe when they're 30, 35, 40. Some person's brain might never get a chance to be truly developed to the best capacity it can because the length of time was not sufficient. Now, last week, I did some research, and there's this guy presenting some information. And he would have indicated that research showed that when you start smoking before the age of 21, when you start smoking, and don't feel like he said you should start at 21, because we know what the science about the brain being challenged at that time, up to 25 and now it's up to 30. He indicated that once you start smoking before the age of 21, you stand a chance of developing psychosis at a rate 4 times persons who did not start smoking at that young age. But the troubling part of it is that he said that this induced psychosis is irreversible. So when people start to behave, they smoke young and they start to behave a certain way. Yes, maybe they get up on the next day and they look as if they got control over themselves, but the reality is that it's just being masked for the time being. It will dip out and dip in, dip out and dip in. The fact is that it is with you for the rest of your life. And sometimes we wonder why we have a society that is not laser focused on putting out our best for our family and our society. You think when somebody just want to sit down by the side part and smoke all day, stay home and smoke all day, ain't take up any book, not numerate at all, some of them illiterate as well, nobody telling them this, because some of them would have reached a stage where the psychosis would have kicked in. And like the good researchers say, it is irreversible. But when people find that they're using something that they enjoy, they find all kind of reason to defend it. And that is why, I'm making a special appeal for our government to slow down that journey towards freeing up that herb. We have to slow down. Thank me later. We have to slow down. Because it is going to be a serious adverse impact that we are going to experience. Very serious adverse impact. We're going under the guise that it is for medicinal purpose. And every time we catch ourselves, we make sure we put it in, medicinal. But the reality is this, using something for medicinal purpose, what is the ailment? What is the acute ailment? What is the chronic ailment? Who diagnosed? Who diagnosed that ailment? And having diagnosed it, what dosage? What do you know about the dosage that would be required? What do you know? But yet we are in a hurry to free up the herb for medicinal purpose. So you just put in an excuse in the minds of the young people that it make them feel this and make them feel that. But the reality is that what is being described as a high, if you do the physiological testing, it is a law. Many of these things that they call high, not any high. Like the good researchers say, that they're mislabeling it because it is a law. Yes, you have your ways you can use this stuff and benefit tremendously. But this lot of smoking we see up and down with the young people, are we totally disregarding that? Are we totally disregarding that? You go to school and you look at the attendance of some people and nobody looking into it, no truancy officer looking into it to find out why they're absent and where they are. Well, I don't know what they're getting paid for. The register is showing Pauline come school on a regular basis, absent 70-something times, late. Every time he comes, he absent. Every time he shows up, he late. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 11 weeks, 12 weeks, 13 weeks, 14 weeks, 15 weeks, 16 weeks, 17 weeks, 18 weeks, 19 weeks, 20 weeks, 21 weeks, 22 weeks, 23 weeks, 24 weeks, 25 weeks, 26 weeks, 27 weeks, 28 weeks, 29 weeks, 30 weeks, 31 weeks, 32 weeks, 33 weeks, 34 weeks, 35 weeks, 36 weeks, 37 weeks, 38 weeks, 39 weeks, 40 weeks, 41 weeks, 42 weeks, 43 weeks, 44 weeks, 45 weeks, 46 weeks, 47 weeks, 48 weeks, 49 weeks, 50 weeks, 51 weeks, 52 weeks, 53 weeks, 54 weeks, 55 weeks, 56 weeks, 57 weeks, 58 weeks, 59 weeks, 60 weeks, 61 we And nobody wants to look into that. And the government has to be careful. It's not about trying to satisfy a certain sector of our society so then that we can try to accumulate the potential of people voting for us. It's not about electability or re-electability. Because most persons who join the conversation, they would have evolved because 110% of them were strictly against it. That is why the users them used to end up in jail, serve time. They now balling foul. Those of us who would have experienced that are to be considered when the free up of the hub comes and the economic potential is realized. There must be a part of it. But there's a need for a different conversation, a different narrative, a different perception. Let us show them that we are the ones who would do this and we are the ones who would do that. And it is just amazing hearing different politicians pushing to say, well, this was my brainchild. I use the initiative to do this. But at the same time, we are not paying sufficient attention to the vulnerable population. That is our young people under the age of 25. And the fact that information would have reached out, indicating that when they get the marijuana-induced psychosis, because they've been using marijuana from early, and it is now irreversible, sometimes we have to wonder what's going on. People got stress, an external issue. Then you start to internalize that stress, it becomes anxiety. And anxiety of a certain proportion goes into depression. And in order to keep you under control, you use a pharmacological substance to assist. And part of the pharmacological substance could well be Prozac to help control the aggression and the violence, or to help to control the depression. Let's just put it that way. However, there are many side effects associated with the use of Prozac. And one such side effect is for you to become violent. You become violent, take somebody's life, you chop up somebody, you shoot down somebody, you do whatever. Then you go to court. And then you know, as a perpetrator, is being looked at as a victim. You were a victim of the Prozac that was given to you to assist in your depression. You were given the Prozac. So within the legal realms, you have defense such as the Prozac defense. And that can free anybody who would have survived that Prozac defense. So we set up people. We set them up. They use whatever they got to use. They get depressed. Give them medication with side effect. And the lawyer pick it up and say, well, the killing or stabbing or bodily harm that was induced as a result of the side effect of Prozac. We have to really slow down. Yes, we are behind in terms of pushing this stuff. And interestingly, we're looking at it from the medicinal perspective. I am currently doing a doctorate focusing on the adverse impact of cannabis use on Caribbean youths. Well, I wanted to do it and think it's youths, but then we don't have sufficient information along that realm. And a lot of my research is being done using papers out of Canada, peer-reviewed papers. And it is interesting because we're looking towards Canada to set the trend for us. And there are more than 50% of the doctors in Canada saying that they would not prescribe marijuana as a medicine for the patients because they're not convinced to this stage that it is doing what they say that it does. Over 50% of them. But yet these are the same people we're looking forward to for guidance. But if you want to set up a medicinal industry, that is good. Good economy. Work, generating income or revenue. But we must set it up correctly. We must first of all protect our vulnerable population. Secondly, we must make sure that if you say it is for medicinal purpose, it is for medicinal purpose. We can free it up for medicinal purpose and it is used recreationally. Nobody take medication for fun. Unless people should just take up all the antibiotics them and just consume them because they're having fun taking medication. People just inject themselves with insulin despite not being diabetic because it's fun. They like this thing at the needle, they like this, they like that. Because it's fun taking medication. It's recreational because that is the perception that we have been creating. And we cannot safeguard. It's a very nebulous area. Where the sagacity going to come from to ensure that this nebulous area is distinguished for the sake of protecting those who need protection? Where is it going to come from? And to complicate the matter even more, you are saying that it is for medicinal purpose. We embrace that. But when the Rastafarian group, they are given permission to use it, which category it falls under? We create only two major categories, recreational or medicinal. You could have subcategories under each one. But I am saying that if you're not under medicinal, it should be illegal, as you would have indicated. But the Rastas, based on the precedent that was established in the court, they are free to use it. Well, yeah, they're free to use it, but the court would have to further qualify that. What are they using it for? So if you had a religious group that started to use cyanide plants as part of the worshipping procedure, would we just sit idly back and allow these people to consume cyanide? Would we do that? It is poisonous. So if we're saying that what we want to promote is medicinal, but the Rastafari could use it, and what make it worse, even the children in the worship sessions could use it as well or be exposed to it. But you can't tell me that we use it for religious purposes or spiritual purposes. And you're going to tell, like you go in the Anglican church and you say, well, you could only take communion at a certain age, you could only drink the wine and eat a little piece of bread and whatever. The bread represent the body and the wine represent the blood, Jesus Christ. And so you don't put an age limit on who could take communion. You're not going to put an age limit. So the same thing when you tell the Rastafari people, the family unit or the clan, that you're free to use it because the court would have given you permission and as such would establish precedent. So a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 9-year-old could get involved in the usage of marijuana because the court would have indicated that. Well, rum is legal too. Rum is legal. So if rum is legal, why are we setting the parameters as to who can consume rum and at what age? Man, we mix up, we confuse, we totally discombobulated. We are confused. We need to take our time. Don't be in any rush to impress any particular sector. Because the funny thing about this, those same persons we're trying to impress and let them use the marijuana, they're telling you that their religious belief dictate that they shouldn't take part in elections. So I can't even say it's a matter of electability or re-electability, somebody in a rush to impress and to win votes and whatever. We're just in a confused state of reflux. Very, very confused state of reflux. And we need to get it right. I know the economy could be great if we get it right and we let the substance be channeled wherever the market is, but utilizing it on local grounds. We have to best face reality. Don't say medicinal when you're in town and you're seeing people with cloud of marijuana smoke over your head, where all the medication gone up. All the medication gone up in the ear. Is that you go on the nebulizer at the hospital because you're asthmatic and the apparatus is not fixed properly over your face. What you should be inhaling to give you relief of the congestion of the alveoli down in your lungs, escaping instead of going down your nostrils and into your lungs. Well, if this is medication, how come so much medication in the air? But we have a medicated atmosphere. We have to think seriously about this and protect our young people. I don't even know if we'll ever get it right. Would we get it right? Or we'll just decide, well, we're going to got to accept some losses. We get it about 51% right and the other 49 is okay. Or you're going to try for a 90 and a 10, a 75 and a 25. Don't tell me you reach on to 50-50. Whatever happened, and we just look to pull in what we could pull in from the 50% that we have. Can't be so. It cannot be so. We have to adjust that. We have to adjust that. And when you're setting your age limit, a 10-year-old non-Rastafari child is the same for a 10-year-old Rastafari child. So how are you going to set laws for a 10-year-old non-Rastafari not to get involved in the usage because you're trying to protect them? I mean, you're saying to the Rastas, man, let your children them suffer the brain damage and everything else. You went court, you get permission to do it, we use it. On your 10-year-old, your 9-year-old, your 5-year-old, your 2-year-old. Mash up the brain. It sounds like that is how we have to extrapolate that. It comes so. We can separate or distinguish a 10-year-old non-Rastafari from a 10-year-old Rastafari child. That can't make sense. The same physiological makeup, the age, the development of the cells, them. We have far to go. We have to take our time. I could see where you legalize certain usage in a certain form. But if you're going to have it under the banner of medicinal marijuana, even if you were to establish a dispensary, even if you were to establish the potency, the dosage. Even if you were to establish or get some doctors trained in letting you know how much to put as a particular dosage. Just like if you have other medication in the dosage and you take it over a period of time. Take it over a period of time. Would it come a time when you decide, well, okay, your ailment would have subsided substantially into the area of insignificance, so therefore it's time for you to come off that medication? Could we say that? Could we realize somebody has an ailment and whoever the doctor is, because they know training it, prescribe that you use 0.5 milligrams of this particular potency, based on the potency of this substance, you use that. But nobody they give people medication to take forever. Even cancer patients sometimes, even though they might be terminal, they find a way to assist them. And medication got side effects. So would you tell somebody with ailment that you could take it for 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year? Would you ever take that patient, because patient they becoming now, would you ever take this patient off of this treatment? Would you? Okay, you get a prescription. You go on to the dispensary to pick up whatever the learned doctor said to pick up. And when you get that medication, you go and you share it up with your friends. Your friends may went to any doctor to be prescribed that. Eh? Would it be over the counter? You just go and you ask what you want. Just pick up. It will be prescribed. If it is prescribed, and you pick up and you pick up and you pick up, but the prescription would mark, don't refill this again unless they come back to me for a fresh one. Or they pick up and they go share it up with about 2, 3, 4, 5 friends. How are you going to know what they're doing with the medication when they don't pick it up? Would there be penalties? Could somebody say, well, this is the person who gave my child marijuana to use and has his brain all messed up? Would you be able to take out civil suit against people for adversely impacting the minds of your young children? Would the government be held vicariously liable for the fact that it opened that gate for such activities to take place without the necessary protection of the vulnerable population? Where is it going to be? Because it would appear as if medicinal use would be superimposed on recreational use. If you cannot differentiate, maybe there's a need for the government to come out and really explain, qualify what you mean by medicinal use. Qualify what you mean that it would be prescribed. Qualify what you mean, who would do the prescribing. Qualify how you intend to run those prescriptions. I mean, what would you do? The society need to better understand. There are some who feel just free it up. Don't talk about no medicinal and no, just free it up. But what about that percentage who would need proper protection and explanation? There are some people who are genuinely sick and could benefit from the use of marijuana in the inhaling part of it, whether you vapor or maybe you smoke it. We have to decide what we're going to decide. You can't prescribe something as medication for somebody and tell them take it every every 4 hours. They get up 6 o'clock, they take it. And maybe should they take it with breakfast, by the way? Should they take it on an empty stomach? Do they take it with milk? Do they not take it with milk? Okay, they take it every 4 hours. 8 o'clock, you took it first. 4 hours later, it's 12 o'clock. Such as also these business places running the operation as if they're running slave plantations. They don't want people to go anywhere for lunch. Or even if they're permitted to go for lunch, your medication is due 12 o'clock. You might not make it on the dot at 12. You do it a little after 12. When you buy a restaurant, a food place, whatever, trying to order your food, but then you have to take your medication. So you light up your spliff. Up come the police. You know you're not supposed to be smoking in public. Why do you describe it as smoking? I'm taking my medication. I'm taking my medication. And so look at my coworker there. She's taking medication, prescription medication, and she has to do it every 4 hours. She took the tablet, asked for some water, and consume it. But the difference between she doing that and my taking out my medication to have a jar on it. How do you explain those situations? And nobody could say, but you're looking too deeply into it. You prescribe it every 4 hours. You go lunch. It is time for you to take your medication. You might take it 9 o'clock in the morning. And then you realize you have to hustle off to church. Not a Rastafari gathering, ceremony. But maybe Anglican, Methodist, Moravian, Catholic. And 9 o'clock hit you while the preacher delivering a sermon. But it's time for your medication. Do you light off in the church? And let me not say light off. Do you take your medication in the church? Would there be rules against people taking the medication in the church? The diabetic might be able to walk with water and take a tablet. Why can't I take out my lighter and take my medication? I think we need to pay some good attention to this thing, you hear? Pay some good attention. Slow down. Put things properly into place. We can always want to utilize an opportunity at the sacrifice of everybody else. We can't always want to do that. Then we end up with one disgruntled society. And from this disgruntledness, other things would emanate. Don't let it spiral to the extent that we're losing control. Do things in a controllable way. You see, throughout the years, throughout the region, there are some politicians whose mindset is that I gonna do what I want, how I want, when I want. And the funny thing about it, somebody would come after me if it wasn't done within the best interest of the people, if it adversely impacted the people. Somebody must come behind and look after it. So me hurting up my head over that. That is the mindset of some politicians throughout the entire world, throughout the Caribbean, throughout the region and sub-region. Me ain't hotting up me head with that. Somebody would come later and try to right that wrong. Either right it or mitigate against it, its impact. That is what we want. Some people might have challenges in really executing the duties in a particular department or ministry, any part in the region. And their attitude is that whatever happens, somebody must come later to right that wrong and mitigate against its impact. We have places to go. We have places to go. Slow down. Put some speed bumps. Slow down. Re-examine. Sometimes at first, you think you had a plain view. And then upon perusal, you realize that it is not so. Upon perusal, it is not so. But sometimes we're confident that we're on the right track. Sometimes you don't even want to feel you're on the right track. For this length of time, for this time, we're getting it done from point A to point B. Even though the eventual thing is down to point D, we got up to point B. Some of us don't want to know how we can get from point B to point C, or from point C to point D. And that is unfortunate, because we must have vision. Vision means that you must be able to extrapolate. Vision means that if you're on a particular trajectory and it seems not to be heading in the direction with reasonable, sensitive, carefully extrapolated material, then you change. You're doing something for 5 years, 10 years, but that doesn't say it was right. And you're doing something for 10 years that might have been perfect up until the third year, but then circumstances, various factors might have changed. It can no longer continue along that path, not even if you get the best possible catalyst to get it moving. It might not move. Because if 1 mole of a base supposed to react with 1 mole of an acid in a neutralization reaction to give salt and water, 1-to-1 ratio. If you have 2 moles of the acid and only got 1 mole of the base, don't care how much you try, is only 1 mole of the acid going to react with the 1 mole of base. That another 1 mole of acid would not be utilized. Chemical reaction take place in fixed proportion. Just like when you want to form water, H2O, 2 moles of hydrogen react with 1 mole of oxygen. No amount of excess oxygen could cause more than 1 mole of water if you only have 2 moles of hydrogen. 2 moles of hydrogen can only form 1 mole of water. You could get 1,000,000 moles of oxygen. You could steady it till thy kingdom come, and not 1 drop extra of water would be formed, because the ratio is 2 hydrogen to 1 oxygen. And life is basically like that. Whether you go to interpolation and then you come out and you extrapolate, life is simply like that. If you want to perform a marriage where the Bible says it, 1 woman and one man. If you got two females, it's only one marriage should come out of that. A female and a male. Unless we're going to contrary and doing whatever convenient qualification we want to do. But biblically, one female, one male. Polygamy, you got down in Africa, you do that. Our cultural thing, one woman and one man. Something just got to go the way the law said that it should go. But at the same time, the law would have to be guided by the societal evolution that we are going through. So people who go into parliament and pass whatever laws they got to pass, they must take the evolution of society into consideration, yes, but they must not abuse the power. It's very easy for anybody in government to pass laws. You ain't got to come out of parliament to go debate with nobody and consult with them. You could consult. But when you put that thing to the count in parliament and you got the majority, is people could debate until they're bitter. Till the very saliva in their mouth start to taste bitter. If a law is meant to be passed with a government that has the majority, and that is why people in majority, you won't find people on the government side voting against it, not around this place. So whatever law that is attempted to be passed shall pass. But at the same time, we appeal to the conscience of the lawmakers to take a lot of things into consideration. Just don't pass it because you have the opportunity to pass it. Because you do not, you can't get, you could get objection, but the objection cannot translate into stopping the law from passing. And that is why we have elections. You might pass a law, yes, but then you cannot hold another administration to that law. If they do not want it, they can repeal the law and do what they have to do. Certain laws, you don't need any referendum to do whatever. You could just go and adjust, or repeal, do whatever you want to do. But you must not bully people and try law upon them without due consideration for the lives of persons it would impact. Even if you feel out of 100, you have 51 strongly with you with respect to pushing through this law. Should you just do it because you have 51? So the 49 would not matter? No, as a society, we can't operate like that. As a society, we should not operate like that. Try to understand what are the ramifications. What would happen to those 49? What can we do to appease them, especially from a psychological perspective? What can we do? Let us take a break and we'll be back.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is man? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear Nor Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. fellow citizens, near and far. Join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKitts.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear Nor Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Welcome back to Fear Nor Favor. Now, I want to touch on this housing project a bit. Last week I promised not to say much until I am more au fait and au courant, informed and up to date with my information. I am still not yet there, but getting some feedback. I think sometimes we are so consumed with politics that we have everything else totally messed up. There might be some issues that ought to be sorted out before these houses can come full circle. And I would like to assume that a pilot project would be put in place for demonstration purposes and also to gather relevant information. Because we can say what we want to say, but before something is actually delivered, we have to be a little bit more circumspect. You put up a few houses, well, it's supposed to be 600, but let us suppose you put up about 10 of them, and you max out all the possible benefits, all the possible advantages that can be had. But the problem is how long this pilot project, is supposed to persist. How long? 6 months, 3 months, a year? Because if you intend to build 600 per year over a 4-year period to give you 2,400, the pilot project, maybe you have to delay the actual start of the delivery of the 600 for the year. So let us suppose they put down they finish, this is what, June, July, August. They put them down 3 months. people occupy them, make sure that all is well, the plumbing is good, the electrical is good, the chemistry is good, because maybe based on the material that it might be made from, it might have physiological properties that might interfere with the occupants of the house. So you do all of this. And we want people to be honest. If it is impacting your health, say so. If the material is durable, say so. If it is pristine and everything going nicely, say it. You don't want to make responses in your quest not to make your government look bad. You don't want to make responses to give the opposition an opportunity to say they tell all yourself. Be genuine in your responses. This pilot project would mean a lot. And we can be guided from there onwards. Because if those 10 prove very nice, so to speak, use common language, then another 590 can go down. 590 can go down. Now, based on the pictures, some people are saying that they don't look good. Some saying they're happy with the way they look. Some people say that it's an opportunity for them to grab. Now, put down one so long. Let people go in, do the inspection, make the observations, discern what is what, and let the pipes be running, let the cable be connected, let the fridge and other appliances that came with them be functional, so people can actually go and see. Because they are colored. Colors got a lot to do with the appearance or the perceived quality of something. And once persons would have said, okay, yes, then you can have testimonies, you can have persons say, I have seen this, I am happy that this is what I want. You go over there, you try to start your process. You might have a few of them who say this ain't what they want, so you exclude them. Or you don't have to exclude them completely. You can say, okay then, you are here. We have these 7 out of the 10 persons who are satisfied or willing to make a compromise with respect to the utility they expect to get out of it. These 3 over here are not satisfied. You don't just dismiss them. What can we do? What can we do to one that you would like, that would be ideal for you? What little adjustment can we make? But at the same time, you got to keep your eyes on the budget. What adjustment can we make? And if the adjustment would involve reasonable expenditure, you got to now find out from the government how much of this additional cost, how much of this cost to have this thing adjusted to my liking so I can derive the utility that I would like to. How much of it is government willing to subsidize? If the government says nothing, well, it is nothing. If they say, okay, we can 10% of the adjustable costs, be willing to subsidize that. And the subsidization could come from, because government get a cut of this. It's just not the people who come in and you pay and they get back. Government getting the commission, they getting the cut out of it. So if government cut is $25 per se, and they're willing to pay, subsidize further, $10 for you to make the adjustments, well, government would have to now only take up $15 because there was an express and signed on to willingness to give you the $10 subsidy. You don't have to completely dismiss people. Adjustments can be made. Adjustments can be made. Or maybe the homes can be delivered with the flexibility of being adjusted in certain areas. That could be an option. Look, you putting down this, you solely putting down this. Great. But when you don't give me this, my family into this type of work, so we'll make our own adjustments at our own cost. There's so many options to be taken into consideration instead of trying to totally discourage persons who might really be in need. Totally discouraging them might not be the best thing to do. Because some person might just listen to other people, but deep inside, they're fighting a tug of war to take on what people saying on the outside and what they're truly internalizing for themselves. And because we have the extra push to politicize, you have like a little tug of war now. Those in favor of the administration would politicize in a particular direction, and those who do not wish to see it materialize to the satisfaction that the government is trying to do that, pulling in the opposite direction. So you have opposing forces. Then comes the input of others, and based on that, and maybe based on who shout the loudest. And that is why sometimes we have to rise above the noise. Take time out, call your family meetings. Call your family meetings. Okay, this one is 111,000. And it is not, you don't design it, you don't construct it. It is not 100% to my liking, but I can still derive a great degree of satisfaction out of it. What about if you give me for 103,000? What about if you give me for 105,000? Those are the sort of flexibility that can be used instead of totally dismissing or turning off people. But if you don't want it, leave it. It's not like that. Our culture should never be like that. Most persons are in need of homes. And anything that we can do to get somebody to really accept a home, we should try. Whatever adjustments. Whatever adjustment. If you don't want to adjust the physical structure, adjust the price. Okay, not 100% to your like, and you take each case on its own merit. The problem most of the time is when we try to throw a blanket over everything. You can't throw a blanket. You preferably might want a quilt with various sections. At the end of the day, you have a quilt with many persons who came closer to what they really want. That quilt is what we want, not any blanket. If you want it, leave it. Try as much as possible to encourage our people Some people trying to get a home for years, 20 years, 25, 30 years. We can't take it for granted and send them down a path where they would have to make a non-judicious decision. Because you're going to psychologically impact these people. As well as, in some cases, because somebody so desperately in need of a house, you don't want to give them a house because they can't resist taking it however you give them. That would not be nice. Whatever little adjustment can be made, make it. And you'll be surprised that those houses would be occupied by a lot of satisfied occupants because they know personally the adjustments that were made to best accommodate them. One thing you don't want people to do is to be accepting a physical housing structure under duress. I ain't had any choice. It was either now or never. You don't want to have those conditions. Make whatever adjustments you can make to help out these people. Because the reality is this, a lot of people who criticizing the homes and trying to discourage you from accepting the physical structure and the terms, but I don't know what they know about the terms and conditions, but trying to discourage you from accepting the physical structure. These people don't have massive houses. Sometimes they got 2, 3, 4. Some of them ain't paying any rent at all. And then, when you now have to go to some of them to rent a house or rent a space, rent a room, rent an apartment, you're going to tell yourself, well, I should have taken the house. I should have taken the house. Because some of the rent is like mortgage. Imagine you're paying rent, not to own. And then when you sit down after 10 years of paying rent, you say me backside, I could have already had a house. In hindsight, because some of those went just like mortgage. So you're helping them to pay off what they have to rent you. Then eventually you have to leave their houses. Whereas if you put on a little extra $50 or $75 and go into your contractual arrangement, you know for a fact that you are paying your mortgage towards owning. You might stumble along the way. You might fall back. But if you fall back, you simply go to the authorities. I don't know who the authority is going to be because government got a strategy, we got your houses at the time. I know you so pay because I supporting us. I had us under duress. We can't take away the key. We can't do that because we're looking for to be re-elected. All that narrative can come into a strong determinant as to what happened. No, that would not be the case now. You either pay or get kicked out. But I don't believe it. That is the impression people giving people. You stumble somewhere halfway, somewhere a quarter way, 3/4 way, 2/3 away, 1/3 away. You go and there must be an appropriate authority with easy access for you to go and explain your situation. They might have given you 20 years to pay it off, I'm just saying. And as a result of that, the monthly payments a little bit too much or the weekly payments a little bit too much. You go and you negotiate You say maybe you might have a daughter, a brother, a child, a son, who, of course, younger than you. So as a result of them being younger than you could have them now placed on the responsibility of being charged to pay the mortgage as well. And with that, the years could increase. So you could go from 20 to 25, even from 20 to 30. And with that happening, yes, you might end up paying a little bit more overall, but on a monthly basis, you're able to pay less than you were paying before. And those are things that will bring back the family structure, Because all who want to run will go there and don't study their parents. But the reality is that, when parents have homes, they can't go in the grave with it. They can't go in the grave, so the home would eventually be left to somebody. And then based on the projection that I'm going to leave this home for my two boys. But when them two boys start to work, they must come somewhere and try to take the pressure off of you. You shouldn't be using your retirement savings. Then you got to go through some kind of midlife crisis trying to work out this and work out that. Come on board and help your parents. Take a part of it. Yes, you might want your own place, but you take your own place, but you also budget that despite my taking my own place, I could still find an extra $200 a month to give mommy, to give daddy, to go towards this, because even though I have this house over here, B, the major house A, the original house A, well, if I help pay for it, that will somewhere that will got to got something there for me. Somewhere that will would have to have something there for me. You cannot afford to keep your family, your parents under pressure trying to meet the mortgage amount on a monthly basis. I mean, your parents are supposed to live with dignity. Not that you are going on the road and you're shopping or you're going to watch a football game. Do something. And then when they go home and they lock up in the bedroom, it's quiet, they're in there crying. The pressure. Electricity bill, water bill, cable bill, internet bill. And they're struggling with it, but they got to be strong because they don't want you to see that they are struggling. As a child, you got to approach your parents. You have to approach your parents and ask, well, of course, you must know that your parents paying bills. They ain't own the electricity department. They ain't own water department. They ain't own the cable. They ain't own floor. So they must be paying. Where is your conscience? Where is your conscience? And then you could tell when pressure started to mount in a home. 3 people living there. Every minute is some confusion because they didn't plan how they're going to proportion their financial obligations. And that can't be right. You have to plan. This piece belongs to you, that piece belongs there, and you move steadily along. Not that you go shopping and you put your stuff them under your bed in your bedroom and the cupboard out there with just one person's stuff in it. I don't know what you do with the refrigerating part. Some people that put their frozen stuff all in their bedroom. Or they might even buy a small bedroom fridge or whatever to put in their stuff. Or if they're using one fridge and they can't afford another one. This one Mark Peter, this one Mark Paul, this one Susan, this one and then with the environment in the fridge, whatever marker you use might start to be obliterated to some extent. So you're fighting to see, because you might have bought some apples, somebody has bought some apples, and you don't know who done eat or what. When you look on the bag, you could hardly tell what name is on the bag. And then somebody eat that only to learn that wasn't your bag and chucking off and mashing up things and ripping off clothing. Imagine you're in a house and you have to look to see what mark what. Man, that in this day and age ain't supposed to happen. And what make it even worse is when you have people under the same roof who have children inside the house. The milk in there was for my son to make him Milo tea in the morning. And you know my son don't eat X. So you know this was his. You go to sleep, you leave things on the fridge. People get up 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, sneak out something. And it is never anybody. Sometimes you live in a house with somebody, just the two of you. And you ain't eat the stuff out the fridge. And they got the gall to tell you that they ain't eat it either. So they ask, jump inside there. You know, just to show you our culture. We need to have a different mindset. Our culture got to take on a different landscape. How could you just mark up on everything? You know, you got a blackboard, everything in the cupboard mark. Every single thing in the cupboard mark. And they got to get some tang or some other drink mixture and they make a mug of drink. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. You make your mug of drink and you took out a glass or two. I don't know. You done got in your mind the last time I was in this fridge, the mark was there. Man, you ain't put any mark in it. But you know deep in your heart that that drink was about there. You come back and it doesn't look so. You start to argue, who drink out me drink? Yeah, you start to argue, who drink out me drink? You take me, take that. So some smart person in the house would look at the mark, even though they might just be an imaginary mark. They themselves knew that they came and it was like that when they got up. So they put something that they can remove, but then they know it was there. So they drink out the 2-3 glasses. And then they go by the pipe, take water, fill it back up to the mark. You got to drink yourself, don't care how much you stir it around. It tastes rather watchy compared to what you had. So it's all kind of things would happen inside a home. So if you appeal to the general family and they're living with dignity, people should not have to do that. And this comes from poor family bonding. Poor family bonding. You got 2 apples in the fridge and your sister live in the house. You went sleep, left 2. You get up, you make 1. Hey, Susan, you eat my apple out the fridge? Well, obviously, the apple was eaten. It's either you're going to say, well, could you pick back up one when you go town or whatever? But don't go ask the person if they eat the apple. Now we had in the fridge. If the rat was in there, you would have seen some debris from what the rat would have consumed. No, it's just honesty, it's just trust. We got to rise above that, man. Way, 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 way above that. So get your homes, get your family structure, and plan. We used to get family planning on College Street, got at one time in that tall building. This is time family would need to plan. And family, father, mother, children, you plan. Who gonna take care of what? And some persons are sensitive and they're so insensitive. You're contributing to the mortgage of the house. Somebody working for $1,400 a month. Another person working for 4,000 something a month. And they basically would want the lesser paid person to be contributing the same thing. Man, as you make money and the differential is there, substantial differential, you take it on, blood thicker than water, you take on that, and you feel comfortable even though you pay more. You know how nice it is when you're having a conversation with somebody and they could tell you, well, my sister only working for that, so I pay twice the amount that she pays towards the expenses. You know how nice that sounds? Nice. You must not be saving at the expense of, I can't even say at the expense, you must not be saving and got something substantial. And the other person who contributing to the bills as well. They ain't got no saving at all. How would you feel? How would you feel? And talking about that, we have quite a few persons well below the poverty line. And we need to look into that. I was very happy when I think it was Ranking asked the Prime Minister today, and the Prime Minister went on to elaborate. And he said that they're definitely looking at the minimum wage. Ms. Henderson went on to explain that it's almost over. They're just doing a little bit of consultation now. You know, people like to ask the time frame. And I am one who believes that the minimum wage and the livable wage should be superimposable. And when you don't set that on a yearly basis, based on cost of living index, price index cost of living, you see what adjustments you have to make. And you know, salaries and wages around here don't really move that much because you're supposed to be doing some analysis. And based on the increases elsewhere, you go and you justify giving people cost of living increase. Might not be a general increase, but you examine that and you say, no, my employees supposed to do a little better than that. My employees supposed to do a little better than. Somebody asked me a question, and maybe somebody should ask the authorities them that. When they increase the minimum wage, is the increase applicable to weekly paid people? Or would it proportionately be applicable to monthly paid workers as well? Is it for salary? Or is it for wages, so to speak? Wages, I see it like per week. How is it? I would have to ask a question about that. When the government increases, because the Honorable Marsha Henderson did indicate that, and she did ask the Prime Minister, am I at liberty to say it? And knowing him, he smiled, I might have nodded because I was in my vehicle. And she got the affirmative, yes, you could disclose. And she said, definitely the minimum wage is going to increase. But the question is, when you increase minimum wage, does it extend to monthly paid workers? Or it just persons who working by the hours per week? How is it done? I guess I'll ask a question and I'll get back to you next week on that. But I think something is in the pipeline. And it is a good move. The only thing would have to be done thereafter. They said, don't watch a gifted horse in its eyes. Because people used to look in the horse's eyes to see how they would perform, get some indication of the performance it would execute. But it's as if saying, when you get a gift, don't look at the value of the gift. Look at the gesture. and show appreciation. But despite that, I'm going to say I would like to see when the minimum wage is adjusted, what is the gap between that and the livable wage? Because I believe that those who give in advice would have to be advising that gap between minimum, where they have to do, and people got some work to do. Maybe it's difficult to work out what is a livable wage, but somebody must tell that we got to dig deep, and based on certain factors, a livable wage might be what it is, 360. Right now it is 360, that's the minimum. And then you have some persons who cannot wait on the next paycheck. So therefore, with that sort of dependency, immediate dependency thereafter receiving your weekly wage, it will suggest now there's some cushion would have to be put between there. And I believe that a good minimum wage that would come close to a livable wage. I believe a livable wage is $5.50 a week. And if you cannot meet it up there for the time being, take it up to about $4.75. With a differential of 75, we could deal with that. We could deal with that. But to go from 360 to 475, that is $115. $115 could go somewhere. $115 for a week basically would be about $460 per month. And according to how many Fridays in the month, and you do your calculate, but at minimum, that's about $465. But that is gross. Then you have to take out whatever you have to take out. You have to take out whatever you have to take out. There's another, let us take a break and come back, please.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is man? Where is the cancer? Pandora come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSinkits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear.
Welcome back to Fear No Favor. I want to touch on two more things. Somebody asked the PM, the good doctor, about the dividend that presumably was perceived to be paid in June. Now, the Prime Minister gave a good explanation, a very good explanation. And he indicated a dividend is part of a profit or surplus that is given back to pertinent stakeholders. Okay. So we have two things. Part of a profit or surplus. So you first have to establish that there was excess that can be used to pay dividend. If there was none, no dividend can be paid. If there was some, it would be proportionate. The dividend would be proportionate to how much excess you had. So you consider sharing up with the pertinent stakeholders. If there was none, because you have so many things to do. You have so many things to do before you can share out what is considered a realistic excess. You have a partnership and you have to take care of certain expenses. When you make your net profit, you do your trading and profit and loss account, you end up with your gross profit. And from the gross profit, you take your expenses, certain expenses, and then you end up with your net profit. However, from the net profit, you might have to make certain decisions, certain policies might be in place. You could decide some of this net profit we are going to put some into the general reserve. We are going to put some into a fund that we're just trying to take off with. You understand? And then when you don't do all of that now, you look at what remains and you decide what percentage, and maybe not even a percent, can we give everybody $50, $40, $100? You have to work out. If you can only give everybody $1, some people might see you forward and find it offensive. So you might decide, if we cannot give them at least $10, let us give nothing. Because perception and interfering with people's mindset is key. So if excess is there and when they don't do all the assessment and they feel something is left to be given out, but there's no guarantee that despite the fact that you might have regular periods for paying out the dividend, a time would come when there's nothing to be paid out. So for that particular period or juncture, no dividend would be paid. The same thing with partnership. Even if you guys observe in the Partnership Act of 1890, or you make up your own agreement, then you have the appropriation account. You got your partners and you work out who gonna get that, who gonna get that, who gonna get that. And you got to take care of them before you eventually reach down by the share of profit. That's the last thing you do. You pull in what you got to pull in, pay out what you have to pay out. And then the last part of the appropriation account is the share of profit. If you decided that it will be in a ratio 2 to 3, one will get 2/5, the other one will get 3/5. If you did not have such an agreement, you have to go based on the Partnership Act of 1890, that profit and losses will be shared equally. Everybody the two of them get 50%. If you share them, they get 33 and a third percent. But everything must be taken care of. The last thing is the share of profit. Sometimes you have a partnership and you decide that no interest will be paid on capital. Peter and Paul in partnership, and Peter brought in 50,000, Paul brought in 50,000. At the end of the year, you do not pay any interest on capital, because if there is no agreement, you got to go by the Partnership Act that says that no interest will be paid on capital. However, there's a qualification down there. If one of the partners brought in an extra $12,000, the Partnership Act said that they must be given 5% on the extra capital that they brought in. So even though the broad thing is saying no profit, no interest will be paid on capital, When you bring in that extra amount, you get interest on the rate of 5%. So if you bought it in half year, you get 2.5%. So you got to look at the terms and conditions of how everything would go. And we must not, you see, when somebody trying to do something good for the people, people gonna criticize. If it's $200, it's only that. If it's $100, only that. $300, only that. Some people would feel that they would have contributed more to Social Security than others, and as such, they should have done it based on the contribution that you would have made thus far. But you need almost a whole ministry to go work out that. You need almost a whole ministry. So you have over a particular number of contribution, you get 200. You do not have, okay, you have over that, you get 500. You do not have, you get 250. Two broad categories. Either that you're over or you're not over. And Lord, let us make little do sometime. Little is much when God is in it. Stop hyping up people to carry out political agenda. Let the people accept what they have to accept. Because if you cause them to become disgruntled and whatever else, and you're giving them a mindset that they're giving me this little thing, if they come to you, even if you have it, you're not going to give them. Even if you have it, you're not going to give them. What you should do then, if somebody gets 500, a set of people got 5, and you feel it should have been 750, you carry out a campaign to get the 250 to add on to that. We don't always have to wait till election coming up to get campaign funding. Election doesn't have to be near for you to start asking for campaign funds. You could do campaigning to supplement some people in your constituency income. Look, these are people who voted for me. I'm not in a position right now to do what I can do at best for them. So could you contribute so then I could, okay, look, some people out of the PAP right now. And it's going to take a while before it is eventually effectuated totally. You want to tell me some of the politicians who people voted for, continue to vote for, continue to express loyalty. You can't say, well, boy, you had these 25 people down here who we had on the PAP, who we know desperately in need of the $500 a month, $125 a week. Do we have anything on our bank account? Do we have anything in reserve to look after these 25 people until the government materializes everybody who's supposed to be on? You could campaign for funds. You could ask for funds for that. Because some people got a good conscience and wouldn't be looking for anything in return to say, well, when we bring in with stuff, we want some concession and that. They go to government for that. They're not in a position to do it. But could you still solicit some fundings to fill the gap of these most desperately in need persons and give them the 500? And whenever the government would have signaled that these persons can now come onto the program, then you relieve yourself of the effort that you've been making and help out those persons. You don't can always sit back and say, well, government ain't giving. Campaign, solicit funds, help out people in your constituency. That is what a genuine politician would do. It might be difficult. You might go out to help 25. Okay, go out to help 30 of them to get the $500. to get the $500 because you have good connections and people believe in you and they want to be supportive. But somehow you only muster up for 15. Yeah, brother, you don't have to give the 15 the 500. You give the 30 to 50 each. We have to stop pretending that we cannot do anything for people as long as we're not in government. As long as we're not in government, we're not producing the effort to help. You can't tell them, Lord, me not got it. Go to the same people to solicit funds and help out. You desperately need people. That is the work of a politician. We got to come better than that. Help out people. And I want to touch on those constituency allowance that these people getting. I don't know if it's $3,000. Maybe it used to be $2,500 or whatever. Imagine you're getting $3,000 a month for constituency allowance. I'm just putting a figure on it. I'm subject to correction. You're getting $3,000 a month. Well, what are you doing with that $3,000? Do you have any way of showing that every month, you use that $3,000 on people in the constituency or projects in the constituency to improve the livelihood of the constituents? Is there any way to reconcile? Must receipts be presented to somewhere? Some of them don't use a damn cent out of it. Some of them don't even go and touch it until the year ends. So that's $36,000. Man, touching that, boy. Maybe in December we rent a yacht and we go out, sail around, drink up a rum, smoke up a weed, maybe do some whatever we longing to do, carry a chick or two, enjoy ourselves. That can't be right. That can't be right. The constituency allowance is supposed to be spent within the constituency to better the lives of constituents. And they must find a way to ensure there can be some kind of reconciliation. Pick up receipts, now word them out. Because we know a high percentage of politicians cannot be trusted with the words that come from their mouth. You have physical, practical ways to ascertain that, yes, the money was spent for this. Thing had to go doctor, and then she had to do some follow-ups. I spent $400 on that, including medication. You know, you bring that receipt, and you add and you add and you add. And then when they realize, well, boy, you reach up by 29.75. Okay, you use a good amount out of it. Good. The other 25 you have, put on a little $3 on it and go up by the drive to buy KFC and buy a number 2 with 3 different flavored pieces of chicken with some wedge. That's about $28. And you get a drink with it. Celebrate the fact that you were able to reconcile your constituency allowance spending. That is something to celebrate. But your conscience must bother you if you continuously get that constituency allowance and absolutely use none on it. You just see it as a supplement to your salary. That is not what it was for. If you happen to spend the money and looking to be reimbursed, but that is all right. But you must not spend zero and hold on to 3,000. It doesn't look right. that is manifesting a dead conscience. And I think it is high time. It is high time that we hold these persons who receiving constituency allowance to spend the money on people in the constituency to better their livelihood. Because remember the PAP, if you're working for less than $3,000, you're given $500 on the PAP. Well, come on. $3,000 is something reasonably substantial. So if you could get that and add it on to your ministerial salary, what happened to the person who working for just $3,000 can't get the PAP at the 500? So they have to maintain that and they have to pay all the bills out of it. And I believe that 3,000 was gross. Is it your net income, or the 3,000 is based on, for the PAP consideration, is it your gross payment? After the mandatory deduction? You're talking about your bills, your mandatory deduction, Social Security and Social Levy, whatever it is. When you take out that, is the remainder must be under 3,000 or the gross? I am to ask a question on that. But I must put out a cry to Minister Dr. Hanley. I know you indicated that it would be done in phases, but hasten to go through the phases. There are many persons who are desperately in need of that $500. Yes, there might have been situations where things were not perfect and something might have been perceived to be corruption in nature, where people were working for much more than the 3,000 but still got the PAP. Okay, we correct all of that. We done went through all. But if you don't do that, and you're left with persons now who are not in that category because you went through with a fine-tooth comb and you have everything in order, what is stopping the continuation of those who are duly justified in getting the PAP? What is the explanation? Yes, you have prioritized, and that is good. But you have persons who are desperately in need of $500. So kindly hasten to go through and reach all phases that must be covered to assist these people. They were there because they need it. Of course, you had some there who wasn't supposed to be getting. But now you already have those who actually need it. Why do you go in and decide which set you would pay first? Well, even if you pay those first, these people ain't get any PAP money since December. January, February, March, April, May soon come. So that's about $2,500. People can't buy the medication. They use the money to buy the little medication. Medication kind of expensive. So a diabetic must suffer unduly until all phases are gone through. Well, that is okay. But kindly hasten to go through those phases and help out those who are desperately in need. Because we're acknowledging, that these people in need, but we still gone in to further categorize as to which sufferers would be taken care of first, which set of them would go through amelioration first. When all of them basically got the same issue. Differential to a certain degree, but they're under the same umbrella that they are in need of the $500. Well, we have come to the end of our session for today, and I will respond to some of those messages while I'm home. So thanks for listening, and we are hoping that the country can continue to move forward. Not just forward, but with some degree of upward mobility. And I appeal to you, do not discourage persons from taking a house to make a home. What you can do instead is to try to encourage them to negotiate for adjustments and make sure that the eventuality of them owning a house, because you cannot have a home if you don't have a house. So they get a house and they can focus now on building a home. Good night.
The opinions and statements made by the host and participants in this program and